Alexander the Great was a king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. He succeeded his father Philip II to the throne in 336 BC at the age of 20, and spent most of his ruling years conducting a lengthy military campaign throughout Western Asia and Egypt. By the age of 30, he had created one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Greece to Northwestern India. He was undefeated in battle and is widely considered to be one of history's greatest and most successful military commanders. However, this great military leader passed away at the age of 33 with a mysterious death. In today's video, we will find out Alexander from young heir to be one of history's greatest military commanders. Dream of becoming a warrior.
Alexander the Great was born in Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedon, which probably corresponds to the 20th of July 356 BC, although the exact date is uncertain. He was the son of the erstwhile king of Macedon, Philip II, and his fourth wife, Olympias. When Alexander was 13, King Philip II hired the philosopher Aristotle to teach Alexander and provided the Temple of the Nymphs at Mysa as a classroom. Aristotle taught Alexander and his companions about medicine, philosophy, morals, religion, logic, and art. At that moment, Aristotle realized that Alexander had dreams of becoming a heroic warrior. Alexander completed his studies in 340 BC, a year later, while still a teenager. He became a soldier and embarked on his first conquest against the Thracian tribe. In 338, he was in charge of an army and helped defeat the enemy.
King of Marcelonia.
In summer 336 BC, Philip was assassinated by the captain of his bodyguards, Pausanias. Alexander began his reign by eliminating potential rivals to the throne when he was 20 years old. He soon gained the support of the Marcelonian army, the generals and soldiers who had fought with him. The army declared Alexander king, but he did not immediately seize control of the entire land, which was in great turmoil following the death of the king. News of Philip's death roused many states into revolt, including Thebes, Athens, Thessaly, and the Thracian tribes north of Macedon. When news of the revolts reached Alexander, he responded quickly. Though advised to use diplomacy, Alexander mustered 3,000 Macedonian cavalry and rode south towards Thessaly. He found the Thessalian army occupying the pass between Mount Olympus and Mount Ossa, and ordered his men to ride over Mount Ossa. When the Thessalians awoke the next day, they found Alexander in their rear and promptly surrendered, adding their cavalry to Alexander's force. He then continued south towards the Peloponnese. Before crossing to Asia, Alexander wanted to safeguard his northern borders. In the spring of 335 BC, he advanced to suppress several revolts. Starting from Amphipolis, he traveled east into the country of the independent Thracians, and at Mount Haemus, the Macedonian army attacked and defeated the Thracian forces manning the heights. The Macedonians marched into the country of the Triballi, and defeated their army near the Liginus River. With his natural talent, the 20-year-old young man put down the rebellion and reunified the ancient Greek city-states before setting off to conquer the giant Persian Empire.
Conquest of the Persian Empire.
Taking over the invasion project of Philip II, Alexander's army crossed the Hellespont in 334 BC with approximately 48,100 soldiers, 6,100 cavalry and a fleet of 120 ships with crews numbering 38,000, drawn from Macedon and various Greek city-states, mercenaries, and feudally raised soldiers from Thrace, Paeonia, and Illyria. He showed his intent to conquer the entirety of the Persian Empire by throwing a spear into Asian soil and saying he accepted Asia as a gift from the gods. This also showed Alexander's eagerness to fight, in contrast to his father's preference for diplomacy. In spring 333 BC, Alexander crossed the Taurus into Cilicia. Though outmaneuvered by Darius's significantly larger army, he marched back to Cilicia, where he defeated Darius at Issus. Darius fled the battle, causing his army to collapse, and left behind his wife, his two daughters, his mother Sisygambes. After the great defeat in Issus, Darius still intends to take revenge and hopes to one day defeat the opponent. So all possible possibilities were exhausted by Darius to prepare for the decisive battle. He concentrated his efforts on building a large and powerful army in Babylon. In addition, the Indians also sent war elephants to support Darius. Darius focused on training soldiers and improving the organization of equipment. In particular, this time, he put a lot of hope in 200 horse-drawn carriages. The wheels were hooked with sickles and the noses of the carriages pointed out long spears like rows of porcupine feathers. In 331 BC, the Greek army left Egypt, headed to Assyria, which is present-day Iraq, when they encountered a large Persian army led by King Darius. This is the famous Battle of Gaugamela in history. While the Greek army had more than 40,000 men, the Persian army had 10,000. Darius took advantage of the superior number of cavalry to flank the Greek army from both sides, but concentrated more on the right flank. The Greeks arranged their troops in a phalanx formation to concentrate their troops on the right flank to fight the Persians. As a result, the Persian army was repelled. Alexander sent his elite troops forward, broke through the enemy's front lines, and attacked main army. At this time, the left wing of the Greek army was defeated by the Persians and attacked the barracks. The Persian cavalry took advantage of the gaps in the middle of the line to attack, but the Greek second line moved in time. Fierce fighting occurred. At this time, in the midst of a tense battle situation, King Darius fled, confusing the Persians. The Greek army focused on attacking, causing the enemy's troops to retreat. Losing the Battle of Gaugamela, the Persians were no longer strong enough to hold out. 4 months later, the Greeks burned the Persian royal palace at Persepolis, ending the ancient Persian Empire.
Forays into the Indian subcontinent.
For Alexander, the invasion of India was a natural consequence of his subjugation of the Achaemenid Empire, as the areas of the Indus Valley had long been under Achaemenid control, since the Achaemenid conquest of the Indus Valley in 515 BC. Alexander was only taking possession of territories which he had obtained from the Achaemenids, and now considered rightfully his own. In the winter of 327 BC, Alexander personally led a campaign against the Aspazioi of Kunar valleys, the Garaeans of the Garaeus Valley, and the Asakanoi of the Swat and Bunna valleys. A fierce contest ensued with the Aspazioi in which Alexander was wounded in the shoulder by a dart, but eventually the Aspazioi lost. Alexander then faced the Asakanoi, who fought against him from the strongholds of Massaga, Aura and Aornos. After Aornos, Alexander crossed the Indus and fought and won an epic battle against King Porus, who ruled a region lying between the Hydaspes and the Asines, Chenab, in what is now the Punjab, in the Battle of the Hydaspes in 326 BC. Alexander was impressed by Porus's bravery, and made him an ally. He appointed Porus as satrap, and added to Porus's territory land that he did not previously own, towards the southeast, up to the Hyphasis, Bs. Choosing a local helped him control these lands so distant from Greece.
Great military commander of all time.
The genius of the great king has been recorded by many historians. He was not only a brave and brilliant man, but also wise and respectful of soldiers. When it comes to battle, Alexander is always in the lead and can be easily spotted. This made him a target for enemies but also inspired his army. Alexander earned the epithet, the Great, due to his unparalleled success as a military commander. He never lost a battle, despite typically being outnumbered. This was due to use of terrain, phalanx and cavalry tactics, bold strategy, and the fierce loyalty of his troops. The Macedonian phalanx, armed with the sarissa, a spear 6 meters, 20 feet, long, had been developed and perfected by Philip II through rigorous training, and Alexander used its speed and maneuverability to great effect against larger but more disparate Persian forces. Alexander also recognized the potential for disunity among his diverse army, which employed various languages and weapons. He overcame this by being personally involved in battle, in the manner of a Macedonian king. In his first battle in Asia, at Granicus, Alexander used only a small part of his forces, perhaps 13,000 infantry with 5,000 cavalry, against a much larger Persian force of 40,000. Alexander placed the phalanx at the center and cavalry and archers on the wings, so that his line matched the length of the Persian cavalry line, about 3 kilometers, 1.86 miles. By contrast, the Persian infantry was stationed behind its cavalry. This ensured that Alexander would not be outflanked, while his phalanx, armed with long pikes, had a considerable advantage over the Persian scimitars and javelins. Macedonian losses were negligible compared to those of the Persians. At the decisive encounter with Darius at Gaugamela, Darius equipped his chariots with scythes on the wheels to break up the phalanx and equipped his cavalry with pikes. Alexander arranged a double phalanx, with the center advancing at an angle, parting when the chariots bore down and then reforming. The advance was successful and broke Darius's center, causing the latter to flee once again. When faced with opponents who used unfamiliar fighting techniques, such as in Central Asia and India, Alexander adapted his forces to his opponent's style. Thus, in Bactria and Sogdiana, Alexander successfully used his javelin throwers and archers to prevent outflanking movements, while massing his cavalry at the center. In India, confronted by Porus's elephant corps, the Macedonians opened their ranks to envelop the elephants and used their sarissas to strike upwards and dislodge the elephants' handlers.
The beautiful beauties of the emperor.
Behind Alexander's success, it is impossible not to mention the beautiful beauties shadows behind him. Among his wives, he has a special love for his concubine, Barsine. Barsine was the daughter of Artabazos, who was closely related and influential to the Persian royal family. Alexander the Great was also very fond of her beauty and admired her understanding of Greek culture, even though she was only a Persian. According to historical records, Alexander fell in love with the beautiful Barsine and they had a son named Heracles. Although Barsine is a woman who understands the power and ambition to conquer Alexander, she is only considered a lover or concubine of this great emperor. She is also one of the tactician in Alexander's journey of conquest. Perhaps that's why Alexander always pampered this talented wife. The woman who was equally influential to Alexander the Great was Roxana, his queen. Roxana, her name Roshanak means little star. Roxana was considered one of the most beautiful women in Asia at that time. Alexander's marriage to the beautiful Roxana was a political marriage. She was the daughter of King Oxyates of Bactria. Their wedding was held in the spring of 327 BC. Alexander was completely captivated by Roxana's intellectual beauty and extraordinary charm. Roxana was also with him in his conquests. She later gave birth to a baby boy named Alexander, who later became Alexander IV. But in 320 BC, Queen Roxana and her son were assassinated. Alexander the Great is considered a husband, always caring and treating his wives very well, whether those marriages are for political or love purposes.
Mysterious death unanswered.
On June 11, 323 BC, Alexander died in Babylon at the age of 33. Alexander's body was laid in a gold anthropoid sarcophagus that was filled with honey, which was in turn placed in a gold casket and returned to the city of Alexandria for burial. Ancient documents record that after a night of feasting, Alexander the Great returned home drunk and began to develop a high fever. He was in a coma for 12 days and then passed away. The sudden and mysterious death at the age of 33 of the greatest man in history for thousands of years has inspired exploration and research for not only historians and archaeologists, but many people from all over the world. All professions in the world want to get to the bottom of this mystery in their own way. To sum up his life, as king, commander, politician, scholar and explorer, Alexander led his army nearly 18,000 kilometers, founded more than 70 cities and created the empire spanned 3 continents, covering more than 5 million square kilometers.
Thank you for watching the video. If you find it interesting, remember to support the channel by liking, commenting and sharing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see the next interesting videos.